Welcome to the Web Application Pen Testing course on Pentester Academy. Now in this video, we will look at exploiting RFI when there are forced extensions. Now what do I mean by a forced extension? So here is a typical vulnerable file in which we actually go ahead and use a file parameter from the request, but rather than including the entire parameter, we go ahead and append, let's say, a .html. So this would end up ensuring that pretty much this entire file is an HTML file, right? This is what at least the developer intends to do. Now keep in mind, just like in the last video, for RFI to work, allow URL include needs to be turned on. So with this, let's have a look at this case. Now please download the zip file below the video, and this should give you a directory called RFI_limited, inside which you have these three files. So let's actually go ahead and demonstrate how they work. So I'm going to pass in a file input and I'm going to give home. And if you actually notice, now home.html from the same directory was taken, and home.html just echoes I am home, and contact.html just echoes I am contact, right? Now you can pretty much have any file extension with an include, and it just passes it on to the PHP engine, which will go ahead and run anything which is enclosed within the PHP delimiters. Fantastic. So now in this case, as one can clearly imagine, trying to go ahead and get a remote file. So let's do this. So I have a directory again called RFI, and I'm going to copy our favorite backdoor as a demo piece. User share, web shells, PHP, simple backdoor.php, and let's go ahead and run our Python based file server on port 8000. Let's go back in here and let's try this out. Let's put in, right, HTTP 192.168.2.22 8000 simple backdoor.php, right? Now we have a useful hint in here so that you can understand what is happening. And if you notice, the .html goes ahead and gets appended to whatever file name or URL we are mentioning here, and hence this is not found on the attacker machine, right? Now of course, as one can clearly imagine, it is super simple to fix this, given that this web server is actually under the attacker's control. So here is a very simple way to fix this. I can actually make a copy of simple backdoor.php and append HTML at the very end. And let me rerun the server now. And let's hit an enter. And there you go. And if you notice, this time around, we have a 200 OK. The file was fetched and it was even executed, right? So here is what we would now do additionally. Just copy this out, and we would add this as an additional parameter, right? So let's go ahead, put this in, ampersand, and there you go. Right now we have been able to execute and cat the etc password directory, etc password file, right? Fantastic. So this is one way. Now for whatever said and done, let's say that the remote server from where you're getting the file isn't in full control of the attacker. Then the thing which we can try to do is try to invalidate this .html using different techniques. So let me actually give you an idea. Let me actually take the ampersand command, actually put it up front just so that we can play with the URL a bit. Right now, if I put in a question mark and hit an enter, and let's actually monitor this thing in here, what you would notice is the remote URL being fetched is now question mark .html at the very end, which means this really tries to become more of a parameter rather than part of the base URL. And as one can imagine, this is happily fetched and executed, right? This is one of the ways. The other way is actually to make the .html an anchor, and this can actually be done by putting in %23, which is pretty much the hex for hash. And if you notice, we put a hash here at the very end, and let's keep changing the command just so we know it's actually working. There you go. And in this case, because a hash is interpreted locally by the browser as an anchor tag, the actual file being fetched pretty much is just simple-backdoor.php. Again, fantastic. Now alternately, there are other things you can do. Let's say if you want to push this out as an additional parameter of some kind, then you could do a %26 and let's say var2 equals, and now if you notice, the URL actually becomes simple-backdoor.php. I probably have to add a question mark in there as well. Go back in here, this would not have been found, so I have to add a question mark, and there you go, right? This entire thing now becomes a way of passing an additional parameter, and of course the file is happily fetched with a 200 OK once again, right? And do a quick ls, and there you go, right? Fantastic. So as you can clearly see, in the case of an RFI, it is actually super easy to beat forced extensions. If you are in control of the attack server, then you can pretty much just rename the file to ensure that it matches whatever extension is forcefully appended on the server side. Alternately, you can try and make that extension part useless and put it more of either in the parameter or in the anchor section, right? Awesome. So that's all I had in mind for this video. And if you're enjoying your time here at Pen Tester Academy, then we would really appreciate if you can recommend us to friends and colleagues in the InfoSec community. Thank you.